Okay, the Mishnah where today's daf is Sech Shavuous Daf Mem Ches 48, and we are holding on Daf Mem Hey on Amud Aleph. We're not holding Daf Mem Hey on Amud Aleph. We're just going to review so we can understand where we're holding in the Gemara. The Mishnah said on Daf Mem Hey on Amud Aleph, Chenveni al Pinkosai. A storekeeper can make somebody make a shvuah based on what's written into his credit book. Imagine a grocery store has a credit book and it says that somebody owes him money. He can't go into that. Somebody says it's written on my credit book that you owe me 200 zuz, because who says you believe what's ever written in that book? Originally, the balabos. This is the story we're talking about. A balabos who knows this grocery store guy says, "Tenli b'ni misayim schitim." Give my son wheat, 2 saw of wheat. Or he says, "Ten lepoyali sela mo'os." Or he said to the grocery store, "Give my worker some small change, and I'm going to give you a sela." Okay, so guess what happened? Who Aymer Nasati? The storekeeper said, "Oh, I gave your son, I gave your workers, and now you owe me the money." And they say to him, the workers say, "We never received money from the storekeeper." So one of them is definitely lying. Who nishba v'naitel? It's an interesting thing that we know one of them is lying. Either the storekeeper is lying or the workers are lying. Yet they both go back to the balabas and say, the workers say, "We never got our money, so you still owe us the money." The Chenveni says, "I followed your instructions, gave the workers money, so you owe me the money." So each one swears to the balabas and collects from the balabas. That's what, even though one of them is definitely saying falsely. Okay, so now let's go back into our Gemara. We are holding Daf. Here we go. We're holding Daf Mem Zayin Amud Beis towards the bottom. Itmar. That's 8 lines from the bottom. Itmar, a similar machlekes. Shtei kite eitim hamachish zu. We have 2 pairs of witnesses. Imagine 2 pairs of witnesses that are obviously contradicting each other. One said that this man killed somebody, and the other person said, the other pair of witnesses said the man did not kill somebody. So obviously, one of the pairs of Eidim are lying. They're absolutely lying. So what's the din? Can now these 2 pair of Eidim say testimony in another testimony unrelated to this murder, and say, "Oh, they kosher edis to be moitzi moment from somebody, to sign on a loan document"? Do you say that once they were found contradictory in court by another pair of Eidim, they might be liars? So Amar Rav Huna said, "Zu ba b'fnei asmei me'ida, v'zu ba b'fnei asmei ida." Each one of the pair of Eidim, we assume they're kosher, even though in one case we found them that they're contradicting each other. But if they come in separate instances, in separate stories, and say edis on something, they are considered kosher edis. So if this one and this one come separately, they are considered kosher edis. Rav Chisda says, once they were found contradictory in court, no matter what, why do we deal with false edim? They are considered to be false, and we don't trust them again. So now I'm just going to bring up a chart so that it'll be clear what the Gemara is trying to say over here, and it's pretty easy. So we have machlekes between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Rav Huna is more lenient and considers them kosher edis, and Rav Chisda says they're not kosher edis. So the Gemara is going to give 4 scenarios. The first scenario is if these 2 sets of witnesses come on 2 separate documents regarding 2 separate lenders and borrowers. Shnei malvim, shnei loivim, shnei shtaris. So you have one set of witnesses signed on one star, another set of witnesses signed on the other star, and they're 2 separate documents, 2 separate lenders, 2 separate borrowers, right? You have 2 separate borrowers, 2 separate stories. So Rav Huna says each of these stars are kosher, and Rav Chisda says no, each of these stars are possible because they were signed by these Eidim who contradicted each other in a murder case. So obviously somebody's lying. Then the Brisa says like this. Let's say you have one lender and one borrower, and he has two shtaris, one signed by one of those Piravadim and the other signed by the other Piravadim. Let's say the top one was for $200 and the bottom one was for $100. So then, even according to Manashach, one of them should be kosher. So we say the borrower has to pay the lower of the two outstanding documents, the lower of the two loan amounts, because one of them is kosher. We don't know if it's the more expensive one or the less less expensive one, the one for the lower amount. So we say that the Baal Hashtar is on the only the Baal Hashtar means the lender is considered inferior, and the borrower could pay just the minimum of the two, the lower amount of the two. Then we going back Rav Huna. Rav Huna says they're kosher. So Rav Huna it will say they're kosher. What happens if you have two malvim and one borrower? So you have two borrowers, two lenders, and one borrower. So then, and they both signed on the two Adam are signed on each of the stars. So one borrower borrowed twice from two different lenders, but now they're coming from two different angles. Now, one of these are definitely a liars, again, because according to one of them, assigned by the Sade Shakri, but we don't know which one. Well, that's similar to our Mishnah. Like we saw in our Mishnah, the Balabas has to pay, even though the Chenveni, if you put the Chenveni next to the storekeeper next to the workers, one of them is for sure lying, yet they both can collect. So same thing over here. One of them is for sure a lying star by Pasla Edim, but both of them collect because we don't know which one. We don't know for sure which one is the Sadi Shikra. The question the Gemara is going to conclude, if you have, even according to Rav Huna, if you have two borrowers and one malva, so you have one borrower and he used this two different shtares, one lender to two borrowers, and each one was signed by one of those Piravadim. So one of them is a false document. So would Rav Huna say that even that case maybe the one lender can collect from both people, or each lender will say my document was signed by false Adam, and each one will say my document was signed by false Adam. Since we're not dealing with the same person, so this will remain unresolved question according to Rav Huna. Okay, so now that we get the basic idea. Let's start again. Itma, we learned. There are two witnesses that are who are contradicting each other. Let's say one set of Adam said you killed somebody. The other pair of Adam said he did not kill. This person did not kill. So one of these pair of Adam are actually lying. Each one could come in a separate financial case, and they're kosher Adam, and we'll accept their edus. One of them is definitely a lying, so we're never going to accept any of these edim anymore in any financial case. So the Mishnah says, if you're dealing with two lenders and two borrowers and two different documents, that is the machlokes between Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda will say none of the documents are kosher, and Rav Huna will say both documents are kosher. If you have one lender and one borrower, and he has two documents signed by each of the pair of Adam that are contradictory to each other, so then definitely the borrower, one of the documents are kosher. So Yad Baal Hashtar Atachtoina. So the lender is on a lower hand. He's inferior. In other words, that the borrower can pay the lower amounts of these two outstanding loans. Let's say you have Shnei Malvim V'Loy Ve'echad. You have two borrowers, two lenders, and one borrower, who Shnei Shtaris and two documents. So therefore, you have two lenders, one borrower, two different documents. So one of the documents is good, but one of the documents is false, for sure false, but it's two different claimants against one borrower. So Hainu Mas Nisan, that's the Mishnah. We have two different claimants, even though one is a liar, the storekeeper and the workers. One of them is definitely lying against one borrower, which is the balabas. So we say he has to pay twice, and that's Rav Chizda. We're not going to say that they're liars. But Beis Loivim Mal Be'echad, even according to Rav Huna, Beis Loivim Mal Be'echad, you have two borrowers and one lender. So then you have two, but he's using two different documents, and one of the documents are false, but he's making a claim against two different defendants. What would be the din? What would Rav Huna hold in that case? Gemara says, Teku, that remains a question. But the bottom line is, Rav Chizda says that they are false Eidim, and Rav Huna says, no, just in this case of the murder case, they're considered, we don't know what to do. But although I believe they're lying, but in other cases we'll accept their edus. Says the Gemara, Rav Huna bar Yehuda asked the question. It says in the Brisa, Echad oime gavoya beis mardois, like kedus hachodesh. One says that the height of the moon was 2 mardois. Mardois are, let's call this mardois. The height in the sky was this, the guide for an animal. It's just the height of the moon. One says it was height of 2 mardois, and the echad oim shalish. So we're not so one edim. How big? So are they liar edis? So they can combine edis and keyamis, and it's a kosher kiddush achaydish. Echad oime gimel. One says that it was height in the sky 3 mardas. Echad oime hey, and one says no, the moon was very high. So they're not the two edim are saying, each one is saying something different. Edus and betela, they're disqualified. But they're not liars. Mitzdarf for the edus acheres, and they could be mitzdarf to another aid. So why lav le'edus moment? Do we see that they could be combined to another edus? Because despite that they're lying, we're not going to consider the two edim each one a liar, and they're puzzle forever to say edus. They can actually go to another case of edus moment and be a kosher aid. So this is not like Rav Chizda, my lav le'edus moment. Rav says no. This is what it means. That means that each one could find another partner that agrees with him. So let's say the 5 finds another partner that agrees with him. So it's like 2 against 1 that said that the moon was 3 mardeas in the sky, and he combined with another aid to say that there's one aid, it was 5 mardeas into the sky. So it's 2 versus 1. The havalei trei v'chad. 2 versus 1. And the one of them was not considered anything of value when there are 2 people. So this is no proof against Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda is really limited to a case where I actually have 2 edim that contradict each other. 2 edim contradict each other in a courtroom. So now one of them is for sure a lying edis. So that pair of edis, according to Rav Chizda, is possible from saying edis somewhere else. And according to Rav Huna, they're still kosher. In this case, you don't know who's telling the truth, but we're not going to say that they are pasul edus. Okay. So now let's go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah continues with another 2 stories. Amar lechenvi, the guy says to the grocery store man, Tanli bedina peris, I want you to give me, I'm going to pay a dinar, and you give me the corresponding fruits. V'nasalai, and he gave him the fruits. So now, amalai, so the storekeeper says, Tanli oisa dinar, give me the dinner. Amalai, nesativ lecha, nesativ b'umpali. I gave it to you, and you put it in your cash register. So I paid you for the fruits. Yishava balabayish and nasalai sadina. So the purchaser should swear that he gave the coin, and that's it. He doesn't have to pay. Amaloi, but if this Balabas says, I paid you the dinner, and they both agree to that, but now the Balabas says, Tenli esaperis, give me the fruits. Amaloi, nisati lecha v'ilachtem l'soit beischa, I gave it to you and you brought it home. I paid you the fruits already. Yishavachem, then the storekeeper swears. Rabbi Yehuda says in the first case, Kol shaperis b'yoda yoda al eliyoina. Whoever has the fruits in his hands, he's in the upper hand. So in the first case, when the Chembeni says, give me the dinner, and we say Yeshava Bal Habayis Shenosan Lo Yasadina. The Bal Habayis swears that he gave the dinner, that he gave the dinner. Okay, Yeshava Bal Habayis, that he gave the dinner. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, if the Chembeni is still holding on to the Paris, right? If the Chembeni is holding on to the Paris, then he can swear that he did not receive the dinner and not give the payers. But according to the Tanakama, it's Yeshava Balabayas that he gave the dinner, and the reason is because the usually the Balabayas is in the right, because the Balabayas, according to Rabbi Yehuda, will never give the payers until you receive the money first. So the Chenvedi is in the right because he would never give the payers before he's giving the money. Same idea is like this. Amal shulchani tenli bedino moyes. Give me. He tells a banker, give me worth, let's say a dinner's worth of small change. Give me small change. The banker gave them full small change. Amalei tenli is a dinner. Now give me the currency, the dinner. So the person said, the customer said, I gave you the dinner, and you put it into your cash register. Yeshava balabayas, the balabayas should swear. On this again, Rabbi Yehuda Omer ain't there shulchan litin dinner. It's not with the balabayas to swear. The banker definitely wouldn't have given the isser until he took the dinner. So so in that case, the shulchani would be doing the swearing. And in this case, the shulchani would do the swearing because he's more in the right. He would have never given the isser until he took the dinner. And if he says he didn't get the dinner, then the shulchani would swear. So it's a machlokes: does the balabaya swear? Does the shulchani swear? Okay, so now that we reviewed the Mishnah, let's go back into the Gemara. The Gemara says like this. We're going back to Daf Memches Amar Aleph. So now you notice Amal Chenveni. Tenli Bedina Paris. Tanya, we learned to the Brisa. Rav Yehuda explained the Mishnah. Amasai. When does the balabas swear? Bizman she'peir savura menochem ushneim iron aleim. When the fruits were not really that the balabas took home, it's right in front of the store, like he brought it out to the front of the store. And now the question is, the Chemveni does not allow him to take the fruits home because he hasn't got paid for it. And the balabas says, I paid you for these fruits. Aval hifshilim bekupase la'achayrav, if he folded them up and put it into his trunk of his car, so to speak, then it's already too late. Then the Chenveni has to prove that he wasn't paid. If he wasn't paid, he has to prove it because he let the guy take it home. Amal shulchani tenli. Now the Mishnah said another case regarding the banker. Utzricha, why do we need both cases? One regarding a banker and one regarding a storekeeper. They seem to be the same idea. If I would see in the first case, in this first case, the Rabbanan say the balabas swears, bishum the peira adivdi the mirkabi, because really maybe the shulchani, the chenveni wasn't paid. And the fact that he put it into the street was because he just wants to get it off his shelf because fruits go spoil. The kivin the merkavi loimashuli, since it gets spoiled, he doesn't wait to get the dinner back. So we don't know if he's telling the truth. So therefore, in that case, the Rabbanan say the balabas could swear. Avo b'moyis the loimirkavi, but by the banker, he gave the small change. Why would he give the small change unless he received the money? Ema, in that case, Moidehula Rabbi Yehuda, maybe he will agree to Rabbi Yehuda that the banker swears, not that the customer swears. The Itma, if we just say the case of the banker, Rabbi Yehuda, only in that case Rabbi Yehuda says that the banker swears because he probably would not have given. He probably would not give the money unless he received the money. So he must be selling the truth. But in the other case, maybe he agrees to Rabbanan. That's why we need two cases of the Mishnah discussing once a banker, a machlokes between a balabas and a customer and his banker, and a case between a balabas and his grocery store owner. So the Mishnah says, "V'chein hayisoimim." The yisoimim don't pay. So we had this Gemara yesterday. Miman. A Yisaimin doesn't collect only with a Shvua. Ilema, Miloiva Avuhem, Miloiva. What does this mean? Does this mean that they don't collect without making a Shvua from the borrower? Let's say the lender died and his children are collecting a debt that was outstanding from a borrower. Avu and Shaka b'lei Shavu, and they have a star that this loan happened. Avu and Shaka b'lei Shavu. If their father was alive, he would collect from the borrower without a shvua. They knew b'shvua, and they have to swear. Why? Why is that? Why is that fair? And says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar. This is what we meant to say. Ein hayisoyim min hayisoyim loy paro ela b'shvua. One orphan collecting from another orphan. That means the borrower and the lender both died. In that case, the lender's children have to take a shavua to the borrower's children that this is indeed a valid document, and their father never told them that this document, this loan, was ever paid up. Says the Gemara, Rav. Now here comes massive chiddush of Rav and Shmuel, which totally upends a lot. This could bring a lot of problems if we paskin like Rav and Shmuel. Because Rav and Shmuel, the Amr Tabai, Rav and Shmuel said, malva loiva. When do we say shvuah works? Only if the malva dies the lender dies in the lifetime of the borrower. So if the lender died in the lifetime of the borrower, and now the children of the borrower want to collect from the lender, so then we say that if they want to collect from the lender, the children of the lender want to collect from the alive borrower, so then they would be able to collect without a shavua, and therefore, since their father would not have to collect, so therefore, when the loiva subsequently died, there's no problem of them swearing to the borrower. Aval meis loiva b'chayim aval. Let's take this case. The borrower died in the lifetime of the lender. So the first one that died was the borrower. So now, if the lender wanted to collect from the borrower's children, he would have to swear. Okay? He would have to swear, because you cannot collect from the assets of orphans without swearing. Okay? So, Kvar Neschayev Malva Livnei Loiva Shvua. So in his lifetime, the lender was always owed a shvua to the borrower's children. Now that the lender dies, the ein otomoyer shvua lebanav. So a person cannot give over money. In a person, normally a child inherits their father, but if their father had a loan coming to him, but the only way he could have collected that loan was taking a shvua, then the children don't inherit that money, and therefore that loan could go unpaid. Beautiful thing. So a loan could totally go unpaid like this. A man lent somebody money, and then the borrower died, and then the lender died. So then there's no way of the children of the lender to collect from the children of the borrower, because the only way that the lender would have been able to collect once the borrower died first was only through a shavua. So this was type of money that the lender would have only had if he would have taken a shvua. And a person, when he dies, only bequeaths money to his children. That he doesn't bequeath them money that could only come about if they take a shavua. So therefore, this loan could go unpaid. So this is a big chiddush that sometimes a person could borrow money according to Rav and Shmuel, and you don't have to pay it back. So then they sent this to Rabbi Elazar. What's your opinion on this matter? Shuazu mativa. He said, I don't, doesn't make no sense. Yarshin ishbaim, shvuas yarshin. All the yarshin would have to do is make a shvua that their father never told them this loan was paid, because they're actually holding on to a star, and the orphans of the lender will swear to the orphans of the borrower that this is a true document. Everybody was going to Rabbi Ami and saying, how could you paskin like Rav and Shmuel? This loan will not going to go get paid. So Rabbi Ami was frustrated. He says, if I had a problem with it, if I had a way around it, would I have not sent you an answer? Rav and Shmuel, and we can't go up against them. Elo, but Rabbi Ami found a way out of it. Rabbi Ami said, once I have this matter, I'm going to tell you something about it. Amad bedin umeis. If let's say the lender was stood in a din Torah with the orphans of the borrower, so then it was already in the court system. At that point, the lender was owed, in order for him to collect, to the borrower a shvua. And then he cannot bequeath a money that could only come to him only if he took a shvua, because the lender in his lifetime was already obligated to give a shvua to the children of the borrower. But if he didn't make it into the court system, umeis, and he died, so then Yarshin was Yarshin the Yarshin of the lender could swear a shvuas Yarshin. A swearing of the Yarshin means that their father never told them that this loan was paid. The Neitlin, and they could collect. But now, continues the Gemara. The Gemara continues, Maskef lo Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman asked a question on Rav Ami's compromise. Does the court, is the institution of the court case that obligates the shvua, the oath? As soon as the borrower died, when the lender is still around, the lender is obligated to take a shvua to the sons of the loiva, to the orphans of the loiva. So therefore, to the orphans of the borrower. So therefore, again, Rav and Shmuel will hold true, and automatically there's going to be a chiyuv shvua, and a person cannot be moirish to his children a chiyuv shvua. Ella Omar Rav Nachman says, Isa the Rabbi Shmuel, if you paskin like Rabbi Shmuel, then Isa, you hold of it, and the loan is gone. Leisa, if you don't hold like Rabbi Shmuel, then you could collect. The shvua is still valid, and the orphans of the lender will swear to the orphans of the borrower. Alma, so we see from here, Masafkale, Rav Nachman wasn't sure who to paskin like. But that's not true. There was a similar case where the lender died first, the borrower died first, and then the lender. The children of the lender wanted to collect on the loan on the loan that they have from their father to the children of the borrower, and Rav Nachman said, "Yachloiku, you split it. They pay half the loan." So we see that he wasn't. So we see that he did paskin somewhat because he didn't want to make a shvua that the loan is still valid. It's not an unpaid loan. And says the Gemara, Ludrov to Rav Meir Kama. He was saying, Rav Nachman said, if you hold like Rav Meir that it's all or nothing, so then you have a suffix. Do you pay 100% or do you pay nothing? But Rav Nachman himself, he never held like he did not held of Rav Meir. He held like Rav Yosi, and that Rav Yosi held that that you divide it. If you can't make a shvur, you split it. So same thing over here. Not that the loan disappears. So again, Rav and Shmuel have this very unusual situation that a person who died and didn't take a shvur, then his children cannot collect on that loan. So we can just ask a few questions of Rav and Shmuel from Brises, but the Gemara is going to say that they still hold strong. So we're going to go very quickly. Mosif Rabbi Shaya asked the question. Meisi Yosher Maskirin es Kusubasa ad Esrem v'Chamei Shana. Mesa. Let's say a woman died. In other words, her husband died first, right? So the husband's the borrower. He owes the ksuba. She's the lender, so to speak. And then she died. So the Mishnah says that her orphans can collect the ksuba for 25 years. What do you mean? The only way she could have collected her ksuba if the mother was alive was only if she took a shvua. So if she didn't take a shvua, how could her children collect on her ksuba just because they inherit the ksuba? Eino de moirish shvua lebanav, according to Rav and Shmuel. And says the Gemara, first she swore that her ksuba was not paid up. Then she died, and only then the Yarsheha, her Yarshim, have a 25-year grace period to collect on the ksuba that they inherited. Tashma, come in here. Nasa Rishayno Mesa Nasa Shnio Mes Hu Shnia V'Yashel Kaidnum Yashir Shaina. Again, another question that seems to say that a person Yarshim could collect on a ksuba, and it must be that we'll say that she swore before she died that she didn't collect her ksuba, and therefore the Yarshim could collect. Tashma, another proof. Aval Yarshim must be an oisa, Ves Yashav, as a barn Beshusa. Okay, you have to see that particular case, but it's not that Bryce is not a question against Rav and Shmuel. You have to reread it differently. Mosev Rav Nosson Barashai Yafa Koyach Haben Mikoyach Av Shahaben Goiva Ben B'Shvua Ben Shloi B'Shvua La'av Eina Goiva Ella B'Shvua. So here the Bryce says that children could collect whether with a shvua or even without a shvua, and the father can only collect if he takes a shvua. Okay, so if a son inherits something from his father, this Brisa says that he can collect on that whether he takes a shvua or whether he doesn't take a shvua. And the father could only collect with a shvua, so the son, has more power than his father. So the Gemara says, "Hey chidami, what must be the case? The meis loiva b'chaya l'malva. If the loiva died and in the lifetime of the lender, so the lender is still around. So if he wanted to collect on that loan, he's collecting from Yisoimim, he has to make a shvua. But if the lender dies, his children can collect whether they take a shvua, whether they don't take a shvua. It's not that the loan disappears." Ukutani, shaben goiva ben b'shvua, ben b'shlei b'shvua. And b'shvua, what do they take? What kind of shvua would they take? Shvuas yarshim. They would take a shvua yarshim, means that they would say a shvua, hey, listen, I don't know if it's paid up or not, but I could swear to you that our father never told us that it's paid up. And shaloi b'shvua. And what does it mean that the children could collect without a shvua? Like the case of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, if there are witnesses that the father said on his deathbed that he didn't pay up the shvua, that he didn't pay up this loan, so that even the Yarshim don't have to take a shvua. But the bottom line is that it's not like Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel, it's clearly not like Rav and Shmuel, because we see that the children who inherit this loan from their father could collect on it. Rav Yosef says, Hamani Beishamihi the Amishtarim Ligvis Kagavi Dami. Enichanami. Rav and Shmuel said their opinion according to Beis Hillel, and therefore it's a non-collected loan, so therefore it's absolved. It's not something that we could collect on. But that brisa goes according to Beis Shammai that a shtar that's almost to be collected is we consider it as if it's collected. So therefore the children inherited a collected loan already. So therefore, according to Beis Shammai, the loan is still valid, and the children of the borrower have to pay the children of the lender. Okay, so let's just review, and then let's go a little bit further over here. We have a machlokes between Rav Shmuel and Rab Lazar, and people didn't like Rav and Shmuel because basically Rav and Shmuel said a man lent somebody money, and the borrower died, right? So the lender would have to make a shvua in order to collect on that loan. If the lender subsequently died, then that loan disappears. Because since the only way the lender would have collected in his lifetime would be if he made a shvua, ein odem moyer shvua lebanav. A person does not bequeath an obligation to swear to his children. So therefore, this is an uncollectible loan. But Rav Lazar disagreed with that. The children could collect on that loan. They'll just take a shvua that, listen, my dad never told us that this loan was paid. But according to Rav and Shmuel, the loan could get, disappear. Ikla Rav Nachman or Surah. So Rav Nachman visited Surah. Ulagabe Rav Chizda Rav Huna. Rav Chizda and Rav Huna visited him. Rav Nachman. Amalei. So Rav Chizda and Rav Huna said to Rav Nachman, Leisimar Nakle Lahoda Rav Shmuel. Let's get together a bezdin and let's uproot what Rav and Shmuel just said, that the loan can disappear. So Rav Nachman was hesitant. Rav and Shmuel, you don't just argue on that. I came to such a long way and took a long trip to Surah in order to uproot what Rav and Shmuel just said. Ella, how do the loisif Allah? it's enough that we can limit what Rav and Shmuel said and not add to it. In other words, there are certain cases that even Rav and Shmuel would agree that the loan is still valid. Kegoin mai, Damar Papa said, "Hapoigim eshtaru meis." Let's say if a person who admitted that some of his loan was paid. In other words, a person pulled out a loan document to a borrower, and the borrower said that part of it was paid, and the lender said, "You're right, I agree to that. The part of it was paid." So there's something undermined in this loan document. So in order for him to collect on the rest of the document, he would have had to take a shvuah that he wasn't paid the balance. Umes, but he died. So his children could inherit that loan and collect on that balance. Yarshin, Shbar and Shavuos Yarshim, V'noitlim. They can swear that their father never told them that balance was paid and collect on that loan. So it's a different type of loan that that a person's moirish to his children of a poigemis star. And on that, Rav and Shmuel did not say that a person will not bequeath that kind of shvuah to his children, and therefore they will be able to collect on that kind of a loan. Ahi deshavik ushavak urva. A person died, and there was a way to collect from the cosigner. Savra Papa Ramain. Papa said, "Hanami de Alaho." That's a case we're not going to add to what Rav and Shmuel just said, and we're going to allow the children to collect from the cosigner because they don't have to swear to the cosigner. It's the borrower that died, right? The borrower died, and in order to collect from the borrower, you would have to swear to his children. But to collect from a cosigner who's still around, you don't have to swear. So that type of loan, Rav and Shmuel, if there was a cosigner there, they allowed the children of the lender to collect from the cosigner without a shvuah. Or with a shvuah, they'll say, "Oh, my father never said that this thing was paid," and they'll collect from the cosigner, since they're not collecting directly from the borrower's children. But this eventually gets back to the borrower's children, because the cosigner, once he pays that loan, he's going to come try to recollect what he paid from the borrower's children. So again, Rav and Shmuel will hold in that case, again, that this loan disappears. It doesn't have to be paid. Ahu the Shachiv, there was a man that died. Ushvak Acha, and he left over a brother. Sava Rami Bar Chama Lamemas, Rami Bar Chama felt to say, Hanami de Loisaf Allahu. This is not adding to Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel's case was where the lender, the borrower died first, and then the lender, and therefore the lender's children will have to give up on collecting on this loan. But let's say the borrower died; he didn't have any children, and he didn't have any children, and I'm sorry, if the lender died, he didn't have any children, and it's his brother that's collecting on it. So it's not a person. You could say Eino the Marish Shvua Labanav, but would you say Eino the Marish Shvua to his brother? If his brother now inherited his brother's loan documents, can he collect from the children of the borrower? And he'll make a shvua that, listen, my brother never told me that this loan was paid. That's not adding to it. Amalei Rava said, Mali Shaloi Pagdani Abba, Mali Moshe Pagdani Achi. According to Rava, this is exactly Rav and Shmuel's case also. Just because the brother inherited the lender instead of the lender's children, it's the same type of shvuah. You don't have to, a person doesn't bequeath a shvuah, money that he could only collect with a shvuah, to his children or to his brother who's going to inherit him. Because there's no difference if you're going to have to swear, "Oh, my father never commanded me that this was a paid up loan," or the brother's going to swear to the orphans of the borrower that my brother never told me this loan was paid up. So a person doesn't inherit. This is not part of the inheritance. So we don't know who to paskin like. Amar Rav Chama says, Hashidali itme hilchasik loik Rav Shmuel loik Rav Laza. Since the halacha is we don't know if it's like Rav and Shmuel and like Rav Laza. Hi dayana to avik Rav and Shmuel avid the avik Rav Laza avid. If a dying paskins like Rav and Shmuel, it's okay, and if he paskins like Rav Laza, it's also okay. Amar Rav Papa said, Hi star the yasmin loy mikra karina loy. Rav Papa said like this, that there's again, in this scenario where the orphans of the lender have a document against the orphans of the borrower, what should they do with it? According to Rav and Shmuel, they can't collect with it. So loy makrina lake, we don't rip it. Loy agbuy magbin lake, but they can't collect with it. Agbuy loy magbin lake, they can't collect with it. Maybe we hold like Rav and Shmuel that you can't collect with such a loan document. But we don't rip it up because not everybody paskin like Rabbi Shmuel. The high dayana the other Rabbi Lazar of it. If they go to a court and they find the court paskins like Rabbi Lazar that you could collect with such a loan document, then they're okay. So they shouldn't rip it up. They should take it to the right court so they can collect on that loan. Ahu dayana the avik Rabbi Lazar. There was this dayan that paskin like Rabbi Lazar you could collect with such a loan. Havatsuvra babon b'masei. There was a young Talmud Chacham in the city who said, "How could this die in paskin like Rab Loza? We paskin like Rav and Shmuel." Amalei. So the Surva Marabanan said, "Aisini garku mimarava the les hilkasik Rab Loza." I'm going to bring you a letter from Eretz Yisrael that we don't paskin like Rab Loza, but rather we paskin like Rav and Shmuel. So he's challenging this dayan that paskin like Rab Loza against Rav and Shmuel. Amalei. When you bring it, then I'll change my psak. Also, Rab Chama. So he came to Rab Chama. Amalei, he said, "Hi, the Yana the Avik Rab Laza of it. If you paskin like Rab Laza, it's also okay, and therefore the children of the borrower have to pay to the children of the lender." So it's a big machlokes between Rav and Shmuel on this particular situation. One more piece of Gemara, and then we'll stop. The Elu Nishboin. A person, let's say, gives money to a fund manager or a partner, and then he has a funny suspicion that maybe the fund manager is cheating him on some of his returns, and he's supposed to get more, or maybe his partner is taking more than his share. So the partners and the fund manager have to swear. That's what the Mishnah says. They have to swear that they're honest. Without a claim, are we dealing with fools? There's no claim. Why should they swear? But this is what the Mishnah says. The following must swear even if the claimant is not 100% sure in his claim, only with a maybe, because the investor only has a maybe that the fund manager is cheating on him. The partner is not sure if his partner is cheating on him, so they don't have a clear claim. Yet Chachamim made it that they can force those people to make a shvur that they're honest. Hashutafin, a partner of Arisan, and an investor. Tana, we learned ben bayis she'amru, when a person can make somebody who walks into his house and then he thinks that this guy is cheating him. It's not anybody who walks into your house you can make them swear that they're honest. It's not the guy who walked into your house to deliver something and then walked out, and you can make him swear that he took something of yours. You have a guy who's signing your checkbook, and he's responsible for the expenses and income of your house. You pay him for it. He's like your caretaker of your house. So then, if you're cautious that maybe he's taking something off the top, or he's taking a kickback or something like that, you can make him swear. Why these people? Why these people? Can I make them swear? It's demeaning that you can make somebody swear. I mean, that he's honest. The answer is mishum demoire bo heter. The Gemara says a fascinating thing. Somebody who's dealing with your money, a partner, he's always trying. He rationalizes in himself that he's allowed to take more than his share. Why? Because he says, I'm doing most of the work. I'm working harder, so I'm going to take most of the work. So if the claimant is not sure, he can force that person to make a shvur that he's 100% honest, because most likely it's possible that he's going to rationalize to himself that he could take a little extra more than what he's supposed to. And Chachamim saw that. Alma finally concludes the Gemara. Amar Rav Menuni, Amar Rav Nachman, the claim has to be at least $2, let's say $2. You can't just make somebody swear on 5 cents. Come on, Kishmuel, do we paskin like Shmuel? In other words, it's the other way around. It's not that the claim has to be $2 and the defendant says, "Oh, I only stole $1," but it has to be that he's denying at all that he even owes $2. So that the defendant has to deny that I didn't even take $2 from you or 2 kesef from you, and then he's denying it, although the claimant is not 100% sure he took it. He's just thinking, concerned that maybe he took extra 2 kesef, and then we pass like Rav, then he would swear that he's 100% honest and he doesn't owe his partner or his investor any extra money. Okay, we're going to stop over here and close.